All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Market Trading. I am your host, Tone Vays. Oh, let me do something real quick. Let me see if I can do it super quick though. Boom, add video. Got it. Slide update. Cool. Shout out to World of Rusty for hooking me up with yet another cool backdrop. Follow him on Twitter. If anyone needs graphic design, World of Rusty. Okay, now we can go to the charts. Man, should I open a pack first? I don't want this to be another hour and a half stream. I usually save it for the end. I can't wait. I need that Tone Vays card. Everyone keeps asking me to trade for my Hal card, but I'm gonna open a pack. Open it now. I may forget later. Maybe we open another one because I want to get through all of them because I want to get another. I know there's one more, one of 100 in there, and I need to know which one it is because I'm being offered trades for both of the cards that I don't have. So we're gonna do the pack first this time. Maybe my luck will change. Maybe my life will change if I do it first. Here we go. First card, coin bits. Next card, haven't seen these yet. Again, every pack. I'm gonna dominate this card across like the world for centralization. Bitcoin card, haven't gotten this one in a while. The Beast card, I've gotten that one a bunch of times. Creature from Jackal Island, I have a lot of those as well. Again, one of my favorite arts. I have a bunch of these cards. The rare version of this is super cool, the blue card. White paper. I don't have that many of these. Really cool card, the Bitcoin white paper. The FOMO card, I've gotten this one quite often. This is the mining card. I like this card. I haven't gotten too many of those. And the last card is, oh, I needed this one actually. It's a good card, not one of 100, one of 500, but I'm happy about this card, the blockchain card, because I have 3 of the red education cards and 3 of the, no, sorry, I have 4. Right, so I have 4 of the red education cards. I have 3 of the red white paper cards, and this is only my second blockchain card. So this is a special card. I don't want to mess it up, but I don't have time to put it in the case right now. I will put it right there. I'm going to put it away from me as far away as possible so that I don't accidentally hit it. And yeah, here we go. 1 second. Just got to reply to someone real quick. One second. Okay. Now let's look at the charts. Okay, let's go to charts. Come on. Come on, Zoom. I know I have 18,000 tabs open right now. That will change. It'll have to change. Am I in touch on what's going on with GBTC? A little bit. I mean, I followed up. I mean, the GBTC, the company, not GBTC, but Grayscale, they went before a panel of 3 judges for an appeal to the SEC's like ruling, and they did pretty well. So we could do a whole show on this. We probably should. You know what? I'll talk about it tomorrow because I wanna keep talking about the budget today. But we'll talk about GBTC. So GBTC is basically trying to become the first spot ETF and convert GBTC to a spot ETF. But that could be good, and that could be an utter disaster for the price of Bitcoin. So it depends on how they do it. It really does. And I don't even know if I want them to be a spot ETF at this stage. But let's we'll save that discussion for another day. Just remind me. Okay, let's look at the weekly chart. The weekly chart does not look good, but it is, you know, it is doing what it's expected to be doing. So even though the chart doesn't look good, it is following the higher probability scenario of pulling back to $20,000. And while I'm not too thrilled that this is happening, I completely understand and see this as a good thing in the long term, while a little bit of pain comes in the short term. Our Consensio allocation chart is actually doing well because we were waiting to add more to our bullish position. And right now, I don't feel too stupid by not adding more to the position back here because I should get a chance to get into it later. Now, you could say, but Tone, you could have gotten more earlier and then you could have exited and made some profit. While that could be true, the purpose of the Consensio long-term chart is to make the least amount of trades possible. You don't want to constantly go in and out of the market. You want to, you know, make a few trades a year. That's it. But you want to make sure you don't screw up. So I would be more than happy to go 80% deep off the bounce of the long-term moving average, and then 100% deep, you know, around current prices after we, you know, go and test 20,000. Okay, so and then hold that 100% position for the next year and a half. That's basically the goal, or at least 80% of that position. Why so many open tabs? Did you see my stream yesterday? The research had to go on, and I needed to get it done because I have to do my taxes. That's going to be equally complicated with almost as many tabs to get my taxes done. Trust me. I do it all myself, but I do it all manually in Excel. So, but yeah, we'll talk about those tabs. Okay, so that's the Consensio chart. Daily chart. On the daily chart, again, we are at short-term pain, long-term benefit. I like the fact that we are about to come up on a MRI buy in about 2 days. What I don't like is that there's a high probability that the MRI buy in 2 days is going to come in as a double bottom versus February 12th. And that bothers me a lot. Okay, I would want this to be the low. If this is the low, if yesterday's, well, I don't want yesterday's close to be the low. If today's close is going to be the low close, and the low close is above 22,000, and then we slowly rally the next 2 days, we will still get an MRI buy, and we avoid the double bottom scenario. That would make me very, very happy. The other thing that would make me happy is a full-blown drop down to 20K. But I obviously don't want that drop in the next 48 hours. That would come with a whole other level of hell. So what I would like to see, I guess, is an MRI double bottom, a 1 to 4 daily move to the upside, and then a big move to the downside. So that's what I would like to see, either a full-blown rebound or a 1 to 4 candle correction, come back down and test the long-term moving averages, and then rally from 20K. Rallying from 20K would be the ideal scenario that makes the longer, again, short-term pain, long-term gain. The best case scenario for Bitcoin to have stability on the way up to 30,000 is a move back to 20,000 first. So as much as I don't really want to see it, I would accept that as the best path forward for Bitcoin. Do I ever look at wallet flow? No, but if someone has a link to a good place where I can keep an eye on how many wallets there are with one full Bitcoin in them, I really like that statistic, but I don't know where to get it. Like, some people tweet it out every now and then, but I don't know where they get it. So I think we're sometime early in the first half of this year, we should cross 1 million wallets with one full Bitcoin. I love that statistic, because any wallet that has one Bitcoin can afford a second Bitcoin. And now that's 2 million Bitcoin. That now each of those wallets at current prices can double it. Like, if you have the financial resources to acquire one full Bitcoin, you have the financial resources to acquire a second one, right? And now, once you get to 1 million wallets with one Bitcoin, now we want to see how many wallets have 2 Bitcoin. And let's see if we can get that number to 1 million wallets. Yeah, I haven't looked at the Fibonacci's in a while, actually. If we open the Fibonacci's, from the very low to the very high, not sure why the top line is white. That's weird. Should at least be, it should be black. And why is the bottom line red? Should also be black. And why does it? Oh, that's not the Fibonacci line. Sorry. I'm going to get rid of this line. Just in the way now. So I don't like the 50% Fibonacci line. I don't like it. My least favorite Fibonacci line is a 50% retrace. My favorite Fibonacci line is the 38% retrace. But again, that puts us at a double bottom. That sucks. So I'm not a fan of the 62% Fibonacci line either. So the Fibonacci lines are a little bit unfortunate, as they are for me, because this one is way below the moving average. So I guess it's the 50% line, but I just don't like that line on a Fibonacci scale. On the flip side, how big was that rebound? So that rebound was very weak. We did not even make it to 38%. If I add the in-between one, we didn't even make it to that. We didn't even make it to the 23%. But again, I'm not a fan of that one, so I don't even have it open. What if Bitcoin stays in the 21.5 to 25K for another 2 months? Would that provide enough stability? The answer is yes, it would. It would. 2 months from now takes us to May, it would. Okay, daily chart, we already discussed. Short-term chart. We're recovering now. Probably 10 a.m. reversal. We'll get to that. Not short-term right now, not that interesting. Powell spooked the markets a bit. That looks like GBTC. Look at that premium move. Wow, look at that. Look at the GBTC premium. Guys, the discount. This discount is going to go to zero. I don't know how, I don't know when, but it has to go to zero because it's backed. GBTC is backed by Bitcoin. Unless you can show evidence that the Bitcoin is not there, the Bitcoin is not in custody, it's fully backed. This is why I've been a bull on GBTC. But if they get the ETF approval, that could be trouble for the price of Bitcoin. Wow, no wonder someone asked the GBTC question. I've been saying this for a long time. It's super unfortunate that the GBTC discount got to this unreasonable level. I explained why it got to this unreasonable level, but unfortunately, it was very hard to predict ahead of time that it would get to this unreasonable level. It was one of those things where all I can do is say, I didn't see it. I couldn't see it. But in hindsight, it was irrational fear over GBTC that got it there. Look, I understand that holding GBTC is not as good as holding Bitcoin, but is it 40% worse? Of course not. Maybe 1 or 2%. Well, it's at least 2% worse because they charge you a 2% management fee. So maybe at worst, it's 3 to 4% worse than holding real Bitcoin. Yeah, just go back and watch it on like 1.5 speed, and then you'll catch up real quick. Oil, well, nothing to say on oil today. We'll wait for the numbers to come out tomorrow. Nothing to say on natural gas. Nothing really to say on gold. Sucks that it's dropping. It actually sucks for me because I'm finally getting rid of my silver. Finally. I should go get the bag of silver. I have an unreasonable amount of silver. I had no idea I had that much. If only I converted it to like Bitcoin or something back in the day. I have 200 ounces of silver in bars alone. And I was way more into 1 ounce coins than bars. Like I have 200 ounces of silver in 10 ounce bars. You know how heavy that bag is? Finally getting rid of it though. Though I don't want to see the price of silver go down. That sucks. How is silver doing? I'm getting rid of it this week. It's not like I'm throwing it in the garbage. How do I find load? Why does this thing always change? Silver. Yeah, that sucks. It was like $21.50 last week. Yeah, right there. Now it's crashed. Maybe I'll get lucky and it'll rebound back to the death cross. Yeah, I was gonna get rid of it this weekend. Too bad. I'll make like $300 less. Yeah, silver chart looks like crap. Should have got rid of it here. But it's physical silver, you know, that's the problem. It's like you gotta find a buyer, you gotta go and sell it. You know what? I'm gonna leave it here because I want to see the price tomorrow. S&P got spooked yesterday, and we are back at support, which is super unfortunate and super scary. We're back into the scary realm, but I think the market will rebound. I think I know Powell said he's going to raise rates some more. There is a ceiling to where he can raise the rate. I think it's about 6.5. That's his ceiling, but you never know. All right, guys, let's oh yeah, Fed watch. This is important. Since he spoke, let's see what the market thinks about. Whoa, you saw that flip? Holy shit. This thing was the other way yesterday. Before his speech, it was the other way. Wow. So the market is convinced that Powell's going to raise it 50 basis points. That's insane. I still think he's going to do 25. That is nuts. Considering this chart, the panic is super minimal. Look at the daily stock market. It's already rallying this morning. Considering, wow. Thoughts on CPI number next week? You know, I think it'll be high, but I don't think it'll be crazy high. I think it will be in line. This is actually good news. If Powell is expected to raise it 50 basis points and the market is not crashing 5%, that's actually good news. Let's go to the 1 minute chart. I want to see, 10-minute chart's good enough. I want to see the 10 a.m. reversal. Bam, there's your 10 a.m. candle. 10 minutes is too fine. Let's go to 5 minutes. Boom, there's your 10 a.m. candle. Let's go to 1 minute. I want to see how close we got. I am going to go to 1 minute chart. How close did we get to the 10 a.m. reversal? Look at that, 10:01. 10:01. You believe that? 10 a.m. reversal at 10:01 a.m. That's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn close. Been talking about the 10 a.m. reversal for how long now? How many years? 3, 4. You know, considering we're bullish today, that's pretty damn good. This was last night because the futures markets. When did Powell start speaking yesterday? Oh, sorry, this is this morning. It's a 1-minute chart. That's 8 a.m., not 8 p.m. So yesterday, Powell started speaking here, had to be here. Yeah, and down we go. Because before he speaks, he releases a statement. And this is why the market falls before he opens his mouth. Like Powell comes up to the stage, and just before he says his first word, the statement of his speech is already released. And AI bots instantly read the statement, and within seconds, the market reacts because they know what he is going to say. That's why the market moves before he opens his mouth, but right after the official transcript of his speech is released. But the market is doing pretty well today. Reverse is at 10:01 a.m. Well, technically it's before 10:01 a.m., right? So because it had to have spent a few seconds moving from the low up. So it would have reversed at 10 a.m. and like 45 seconds. So the total Vays 10 a.m. reversal trade opportunity was accurate to 45 seconds. Okay, let's get back to what I spent 9 hours doing yesterday after spending 9 hours doing it the day before. And that is, please watch yesterday's video. I talked about this as the biggest problem facing the United States over the following decade. This is the interest on US federal debt. And it went exponential. It has never gone exponential before. And I explained why that is. That's the data. I explained why that is. And that is because the interest rate has gone up of 0. It has partially to do with the fact of how fast the interest rate went up. But this was going to go exponential regardless of how fast the interest rate was rising. The faster the interest rate rises, the more vertical this line would be. But the line was going to go exponential even if the Fed only raised interest rates to 2.5%. But as the Fed raises interest rates to, say, I think they're going to go to 6.5. As they go up to 6.5 over this year, this chart is going to go super exponential. And why is that? That is because every single year, except for 3 years, the government runs a deficit. They can't pay their bills. And when they can't pay the bills, they pay those bills with borrowed money. Kind of like if you can't pay your annual bills, you will put the difference on a credit card. And that credit card comes with interest. However, your credit card has a limit, like the debt ceiling, which the government always extends. But your intention is, well, I will make money later, and later on, I will not only pay the interest on that credit card, I will also pay the principal of that credit card. So the government pays the interest on the credit card, but it never pays the principal of the credit card. Now, in the government's defense, the only time they've ever made money was in the 3 years, 4 years. They made money in 98, 99, 2000, and 2001. So they've only made money 4 years. Maybe they made a little bit of money right there. It's hard to tell because of this ridiculous insanity. Or maybe I can take that out. Hold on. Okay, so there's been a couple of years, right? They made money in 1948, and they made 3 cents in 1969 and a few cents here, right? But not enough to do anything with, right? But when the government makes money, it's supposed to pay back the principal of the money that it borrowed, but it never does. It never has. So even though it made money here, it never used it to pay the principal on the credit card. But they are paying the interest on that credit card. But the principal keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay? And the crazy part comes when the interest gets so big that paying that interest increases the amount of money you have to borrow to pay the interest. That's basically what the government's doing. And that is why the cumulative debt. So now imagine you have to borrow more money to pay interest that gets bigger and bigger every year, sorry. And the following year, the amount of interest that accumulated is bigger because the year before you borrowed more money to pay the bigger interest than it was before. So this is a perpetual cycle that has created this. And all I wanted to do was make my own chart. I wanted to do this, but I wanted to do it myself. And I didn't know what income security was. Like, it's a very confusing line. So I was going to just redo this with my own data. And I had a problem figuring out interest on debt. So anyway, so this was my Excel spreadsheets of all the data for the last 3 years from every department. And I ran into trouble that took me almost 24 hours to figure out on how to calculate the net interest. The best article I found was this explanation as to why basically the government spent, where's the number? The government, well, I'm using 2020 numbers because that's the data I was working with. But last year, the government spent $717 billion paying interest. But in all the graphics, including the graphics from the government, this is the graphic from the government. It's a great graphic. They're saying they only paid $475 billion in net interest. But on their balance sheet, the Treasury paid 717. So I needed to get from 717 to 475. And I did not know how to do that. The only explanation I found as to how they calculate net interest from the interest that they paid on public debt was an article from the budget office that explained how they calculate it. And the article was written in 2020, so I had to use 2020 numbers. It was 523 is the gross interest on public debt, or they write it on treasury. Also, these descriptions are not the descriptions in the goddamn reports. So this was the giant nightmare. So here you can match up the numbers. 523 is how much gross interest the government paid. I got that number from the budget gross numbers right here, 522.6. They're rounding, so yes, that's $523 billion that they spent. But now I have to figure out, and this was a 24-hour journey, where the hell do these numbers come from? And interest received by trust funds was $135 billion. So this took me, I don't know, maybe 4 hours to figure out. And that number is actually here. It's in the undistributed, it's this section here, undistributed offsetting receipts. And there is a thing here that's called interest received by trust funds. And there it is, $135 billion. So that number matches up. So this is basically the money that the government makes that they can't allocate to any specific department. So this is by department. So this is how much money each department is costing the government by year. And but within each part of the government, except like justice and interior, these departments never make any money. But within this number, to calculate this number, like the Department of Department of Health and Human Services, the department had an expense of 1.5 trillion, but it was actually a much bigger expense, but they also made some money. But it's not tax revenue. So this is the revenue of the government is just the taxes. So even within this line, there's some money that each department makes. It's not, some of them don't make any money, but some of them make a decent amount of money. If they didn't, this number would be 2 times bigger. But then there is money that the government makes that they can't allocate to a single department. That was the 241. When you go to a more detailed report, and by the way, when you get the basic report, this is the basic report for 2020. So it looks like this: Department of Agriculture, right there. So this is how much subtotal, right? So this is the Department of Agriculture for 2020. It lost $184 billion, or it cost $184 billion. But they did make some money. There are some offsetting receipts inside the Department of Agriculture. But getting this is very hard. Like the details of this is, I thought was going to be impossible. But anyway, we got there. So let's get back to the spreadsheet. And then there are offsetting receipts that are so general. Sorry, those are offsetting receipts for the Treasury. Each department has offsetting receipts, but then there is general offsetting receipts that can be assigned to any department. And that's where we get this 241 billion, of which 135 billion came from interest on trust funds. So the net amount, net interest, is this 528 minus the 135. But then according to this article, if I didn't have this article, this would be an impossible task. So there's the 135, but then there's an additional 41 and an additional 2. Now this 2 is kind of crazy. It's investment income, and they're being very specific that it's coming from the National Railroad Retirement Investment Trust. There is like 100 different retirement investment trusts in the United States government. And for some reason, only the National Railroad is somehow has its own special line. This is the only thing that I'm still struggling with, but it's such a small part that it doesn't really alter it. The biggest challenge was other interest, and it's explained primarily interest from financing accounts for federal credit programs. That is not very helpful. They do break it down. What is other interest? Other interest is all this stuff. It's interest earned from these 2 programs, and also interest earned from funds of these agencies. And then they have to pay interest on tax refunds. So they do pay you a tax refund with interest. I know a lot of people don't believe that, but apparently that there is a line item. So this is actually how much money the government spent. It's because it's positive. And this is how much money the government made because it's negative. So it's already ass backwards in your head. And I tried, the low-hanging fruit first. And then there is this other, like this is just completely unhelpful. Like whatever this other is, includes small amounts of receipts, outlays, and intergovernment payments that could not be readily categorized. So this is impossible to find. So that's already, done. Okay, this doesn't get any more explanation. So there's no way I can find this number. Impossible. This makes no sense to me at all. It's like someone decided this like a decade ago or 2 decades ago. They have an automated formula that calculates it. And Now we're going to go and look for these things. Now, these descriptions are not the descriptions in the goddamn reports. So when you get, so this is 2020 budget. It has a little more detail. It has the agriculture number broken down, the parts inside the agriculture budget, but it's not broken down enough. It's only an 8-page report. So we go a little bit deeper. We go into the Treasury, the statement from the Treasury on every single department. Now, this is a pretty cool document for 2020. That's the same thing as this document. It breaks it down. Now, it does break it down by category, not by department. That's a whole other issue. So I'm in 2020, and now you can see the budget receipts. So this is how much money the government made from taxes. And now here come the budget outlays for every department. But then they do provide detail. So here's the social, insurance, and retirement receipts. So they do go into detail. And the first thing I needed to do was to figure out, where is the other $43 billion coming from that the government made? Is it coming from this section of undistributed offsetting receipts, or is it coming from the budget? Is it coming from this 67 billion that the Department of Treasury made? So that was not, eventually, after doing some math and backing out numbers, I determined that all of these, where is it? Everything, oh, where did it go? Here. I determined that this entire, both of these things, other interest and investment income, they're both coming from the Treasury's balance. They're coming from the Treasury Department, not offsetting. So they are coming from this 67. But how do you know which 43 billion of the 67 billion that the Department of Treasury earned came from earning interest? So because this is the amount of interest the government pays, but if they're earning a bunch of interest, they're netting it out. That's basically the point. So the hunt began, and the whole thing took about 18 hours to figure out. And it's a miracle that I was able to do it. I almost gave up on 3 different occasions. I thought it was going to be impossible. So now we can't get it from the basic 9-page report. So I started digging into the 40-page report from the Treasury. Now here, we get to the Treasury branch, which is supposed to have a bunch of detail. Not sure what page it's on. Let me see, I'll get there. International Assistance Program. This put another thought in my head. How do I figure out how much money we spent on Ukraine? And that could be a deeper rabbit hole, because that's buried within so many departments. It's insane. But I would like to, validate those numbers myself. Don't trust, verify. So somewhere down here, might have gone a little too far. Yeah, undistributed offsetting receipts continues. Now we have to find the Treasury Department, Social Security Administration. Okay, Treasury. Okay, now we can go backwards. There it is. Borrowing from the US Treasury. So here we go. And basically, at the end of the day, this report did not have the information I needed. It just didn't. Borrowing from Treasury. You see it. And then there was a line item here. This is how much money they borrowed. But then when it came to how much money did they make, it just said offsetting receipts. Somewhere down here. But in any case, I was not able to get details on what it was. So now we moved on to, well, this was a report. This was an interesting report, but it didn't have the detailed numbers. Now we moved on to a 270 report of the agency financial report. And this report was not very helpful. I really thought I can get it from these 270-page reports, but I was not able to. So I had no choice but to start digging into the combined statement of receipts, outlays, and balances of the United States government, which is a 642-page report for 2020 and a 900 and a 700-page report for 2022. I was using 2020 numbers because I needed to match this estimate of 41. And more importantly, I needed to get these. So here we go. Let me show you. Eventually, when I got to page 41, when I got, and this is literally the report. It looks like this. It literally looks like this. Every page looks like this, at best. When I got to page 41, I was able to match up on page 41 of that ridiculous report. I was able to find these things. Not all of them. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry, all of them. So obviously there's no EMERHCF, right? But they tell you what it is. It's the Department of Defense Retirement Healthcare Fund. And then USPS is the Postal Service Fund, obviously. Then the Federal Finance Bank. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a different line, I think. But in any case, on page, not to bore you, but on this page, we find the interest on loans to Federal Financing Bank. And that's the interest paid on this. So that's $2 billion. That's right here. Federal Financing Bank. Right there. That's the 2 billion right there coming in. So we found that one. Then interest received by retirement and health benefits. So there's the Postal Service contribution, 1 billion, because they're rounding on the other side. I wish they give you more decimal places. This would be a lot easier to find. And then earnings and investment right here in the healthcare fund. This was 7 billion. Right there. 8 billion right here. And 7.8, so that's $8 billion. They're rounding. So that's the 8 billion, that's the 1 billion, that's the 2 billion. So that's 3 out of 4 covered. And the waste management, well, the nuclear waste fund was on a different line. And I was really hoping that this right here, payment from the National Railroad Retirement Investment, was $2 billion. And I was really hoping that that line was this line here of 2 billion. And I thought I was on the right track. But then when I validated this data against older years, it didn't match up. So I'm still on the hunt for the investment income of the National Railroad Retirement Trust. I don't know if I care to go down that rabbit hole because it's just a small number. It's not that big a deal. And I'll never be able to figure this number out anyway on the other line. And so that doesn't matter. So then we needed to find where the hell the waste management money was. And the waste management money was on the following page. So I didn't have to go too far to find it. So somewhere here was nuclear. Oh no, that's going to be hard to find. It's I also have to go by department number. So this department number is it's right near the energy, right there. Boom, there it is. There's the line. Earnings on investment from nuclear waste disposal fund. And that was 1.5 billion, 1.56 billion, which rounds up to $2 billion. So now we found this one at 2 billion. But again, like it's such a close round that it's crazy. Why can't they give us these numbers with like an extra, decimal places? It's so frustrating to try and find these things in a 650-page report. It's actually insane. So now we find all 4 of these. They're done. Now the hunt is on to find where the government made additional, spent additional interest. And that's this stuff. Now, in that giant 650-page budget, they break it down by how much money the government makes versus how much money the government spends. But by department has nothing to do with actual tax revenue, has to do with department. I know I'm probably boring some of you, but some of you will find this interesting. So these things have notes. So this right here is section receipts by source categories. So this is those offsetting receipts that each department makes. And this goes on for about 200 pages. But in the 400s, for example, on page 403, so on page 403, this is the outlays. So this is the taxes, the interest, the additional stuff that the government pays, actually everything that the government pays. So the outlays is a much bigger section than the outlays is 400 pages and the inputs there. So the outlays have a different style. So right here, payments to the Resolution Funding Corporation, Bureau of Financial Services within the Treasury. Okay, so this here is $2.4 billion. So the $2.4 billion is this Resolution Funding Corporation. Hey guys, I have no idea how the hell I found these things. I'm a very good researcher, especially when I'm tunnel vision. I didn't eat for 2 days trying to figure this shit out. So here it is. By the way, go find these reports and just glance at them. It's insane. To get this particular report, you need to go to here. You have to Google this. I don't even know how I got to these links. But this is the problem is only as of 2020, it's a single report of 600 plus pages. Because prior to 2020, the reports are in by 20 pages long. So if you're here on this page, over here, no, not here. What the hell? If you're on this page right here, and combined statement here, you could find old statements somehow. You can get the current report. The current report is a single report of 600 pages. And they have it broken down in pieces. But when you go older, and I was able to find old reports somehow, when you find the older ones, they don't have a single report. They literally have it in pieces. So you have to download, if you want to see the whole report, you got to download every single one of these PDFs. Like all of these PDFs are the combined 600 plus pages. Nuts. It's absolutely nuts. So this right here is the money that it made from, sorry, the money that it spent on Resolution Funding Corporation. Now we have to find the tax refund interest. Okay, and that comes in on page 406. Yes, I did go through the whole 640-page report to get this. So now we go to page 406. And that's where we find refund interest revenue collection on the taxes. You do have to like know what these department codes are to make sure there's the tax department. But here it is. Refunding internal revenue collection. And this is the interest on that. Interest. So we're only calculating interest, not the refunds, the interest on the refunds. Yeah, this thing goes on forever. It looks like this for 600 pages. So it has to say interest. See, this doesn't say interest. So you have to figure out what the interest is. So right here, interest. Interest, and like I said, it doesn't just say IRS. So it was really difficult to do Control F, because when you do Control F on MERHCF, you get no hits. You do a Control F on USPS, you get no hits. You know, you do a Control F on tax refunds, you get 0 hits in the 650 pages. Like the names are just like some guy wrote this. Anyway, we find these numbers. Now comes the challenge. So the unemployment loans to states was a challenge, but it wasn't my fault. The reason unemployment loan to states was a challenge to find is because in the 2020 statement, hold on. In the 2020 statement on page 33, that line item is supposed to be, let me see where it's supposed to be. That line item is supposed to be in between these two lines. It's supposed to be in between these two. So I spent hours and hours and hours looking for that line item, a line item that had a 0 amount, by the way. But I was not going to let it go. I was going to find this line item in this report. And just as I was about to give up, I checked other reports. And in 2022 report, there was a line item for interest on unemployment insurance loans to states. So yes, I had to look at multiple 600-page reports. I found it. And these are the numbers. And it's in all the reports. I went back, I had to open the 2019 report. I had to find the PDF from that list of 50 PDFs that combined together for the 600-page report. I had to find the PDF that had that particular thing in it. And it's this one. I don't know what page it's going to be on, but this is the 2019 one. And it was there. We can do loan. Let's just do 2 states. I don't know if it's loan or loans. 2 states. There it is. Interest on unemployment insurance loans to states. So it was there in other reports, and I was able to match it. So this has like a star on it, which I don't know the difference between a star and 0, but it had it in other reports. And in 2019, here, it was only $1 million. So obviously, it's not going to round to $1 billion.
So it only made like $1 million, $1.5 million in 2019. But that's what took hours to figure out, is that for some God knows what reason, the line item is missing altogether. Maybe it's because it made zero money. But how can it be zero? Like it could have, well, like I don't understand. So they just left it out, not there. But you can tell by the number that it's the same line, because that number is missing. 016, department 8042, but it was number 004. I even remember off the top of my head at this point. That's how long I was searching for it. So now by these numbers, by these line items, I was able to find this line in every other report except the 2020 report. Okay, so that one's done. But if this thing was there from the beginning, I would have found it a lot earlier. So even though that took forever, it wasn't really my fault that it took forever. I would have identified it if it was in the goddamn 600-page report. Now we come to the biggest challenge of them all, which I almost gave up on. And that is credit financing account. But it also made the most money. In 2022, it made $32 billion. And I knew that this 32 billion had to have come from the treasuries. I mean, all those numbers are actually coming from here, offsetting receipts with the treasury. But how do I back out $32 billion from 67? Where is that coming from? So the investigation began. What is credit financing accounts? We get this explanation. The credit financing, and this is super interesting. The budget shows a subsidy cost. So basically, let me sum it up for you. So the government, and they have a nice chart. So right here, agency program account provides money to departments when a department does not have, can't meet its budget. So basically, if the Department of Agriculture does not have enough money, they borrow that money from the Treasury. So the Treasury gives the loan to every single department if they need the money. So they're giving loans to the Department of Defense, they're giving loans to the Department of Agriculture, they're giving loans to the Department of Education. Okay. Now, the department itself borrows that money from the Treasury, but they have to then pay it back to the Treasury with interest. Now, I needed to figure out where the hell that line item is and how is it broken down. That was the challenge in itself. Okay, so I have notes on this as well. And those notes are right here. Okay, so after reading this over and over and over again, this is the unemployment loans to states that I eventually figured out because that was the one that was missing. But this is the part that I needed to read over and over. And eventually, I was able to find that line item, but the line item didn't make sense. And this is where I almost gave up. It's also on page 33. And on page 33, it is 020, 1499. Let's look for 1499. I see a lot of 1435s. There it is, 1499. This is the only line item that is big enough. See, this entire section is interest. Proprietary receipts from the public, interest. I don't know why they're all not included. I don't know. I don't understand that. Okay. But this one here is interest received from credit reform financing accounts, but it's $55 billion. again, you can't control F this shit. And the reason is because here it says interest received from credit reform financing accounts. Here in the document that I'm going with, it doesn't say the word reform. It just says credit financing accounts. So the only way I knew that the reform had something to do with it was here, because I actually went and read the Federal Credit Reform Act and what the hell it does. You can Google this, by the way. I really encourage people to do some of the research themselves, right? So you have to go and like read this thing to really understand the circular ridiculousness of how money keeps being borrowed and paid back from the government within the government, constantly like tacking on more and more interest. There's more to this document. I have to look for it other ways. Anyway, let's go back. So now so after about an hour or two trying to figure out how this makes sense, where am I here? Here. No, I'm here. This is $55.5 billion. And this is the amount of interest that the Treasury received from other government agencies that are borrowing money from them. $55 billion. Now, all in all, the Treasury received 67 billion. 55 billion of that was there. But how do I get from 55 billion that it received, or I'm trying to figure out how in the world is this 32? Like there was no other choice. Like it had to be that line item that is making 32. And just as I was about to give up, I read this one more time. I read this one more time, and then it suddenly made sense. It was this right here. The annual interest payments between the Treasury and the financing account. Remember, we're dealing with a financing account. Can also flow in either direction. Now, I should have recognized this arrow because interest flows both ways. And I also did not think it was possible that these government agencies that constantly cannot pay their bills. The Department of Agriculture always borrows money. The Department of Defense always borrows money. But apparently, some of these agencies are holding government securities. And if your government agency is holding government security, then the Treasury owes them interest. So the interest flows in both directions. Now, an agency like the Department of Agriculture could be borrowing money from the Treasury that it now has to pay back with interest. But it could also be holding government securities. And the interest on those government securities is paid to them by the Treasury. So eventually, when I figured this out, I thought, holy shit, now I got to go on another hunt to figure out how much interest the Treasury is paying the people involved in this federal, the credit financing program, which is every department. But luckily, I also happen to have this open on another monitor. And there was a line item, an actual line item in the Treasury's basic details that says interest paid to credit financing accounts. So at that point, it became really simple math to just take the 55, I did it right here, the 55.529 billion, the 55.29 billion right there, 55.29, and from it, subtract the interest paid to credit financing accounts, 23, and boom, you get your number, 32 billion. Now, I did not yet cross-check this against prior dates, but it completely makes sense now. Like, I wish this offsetting receipts actually had, was broken up into two. They're telling me how much interest the government paid to other government agencies, but it's not telling me how much interest the government earned from those agencies. And it's buried in here. Like, remember, negative numbers is what the government makes. Positive numbers are what the government spends. In this section, this is the outlays, right? This is the receipts, this is the outlays. In outlays, it's all backwards. So government spent 23 billion, it made 67 billion, but it's this line item for the credit financing account, which in the document is credit reform financing account. So on this note, other than some very minor stuff, and this was me trying to figure out the whole railroad thing, like where are they getting these numbers from? Like in 2019, where's the 2020 numbers? Yeah, I should get 20 numbers. So the only one I still can't figure out is this railroad thing, this thing, in investment income from railroads. It makes no sense whatsoever. And the other one is this other, but this is impossible to figure out. There's no details on this. It just says other. So that's it. So the good news is I was able to back out the number. And it does make sense in a quasi-weird way. So all I did was spend close to 24 hours identifying which net interest I should use. And now the question becomes, because I want to make my own chart that looks like this. But here's the other thing, right? So the numbers they provide you is by department. This is by department. But all these charts, including this one, this is not by department. Like Social Security, for example, is 1.22 trillion. Okay. But the Social Security Department, this is 2022 numbers. Social Security Administration is 1.28 trillion. And this was my other area of confusion. Why aren't these numbers matching up? Why? And it's for all of them, every single one of them. Also, Health and Human Services right here is 1.64 trillion. But Health and Human Services, when you break it down, is both Medicare and Medicaid, along with other like health spending. But on these charts, health is here and Medicare is here, but they are both the same department. They are both Health and Human Services. When you add them together, 914 and 755, you get very close to that $1.6 trillion number for the department. And the reason for this insanity is that they don't give you these charts, and all of these charts, they're not by department. I may have to go to another graphic here. What graphic? What graphic should I use? That's the 40-page report. Yeah, it has to be that 200-page report, this one. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. It is at the top of the 600-page report. It's at the top of that. I wish I can just click next page, but they do break these numbers down by, not by department. You know what? It's better to show a website. What's the website? This one. They're breaking these numbers down by you know what? Hold on. There was another website. There was an interactive website, though the website sucks. Has to be here somewhere. Too many tabs, I know. Oh, this one. Explore the spending landscape. So they have it by budget function and by agency. So if you go by agency, and I don't understand where this number is coming from. If you go to fiscal year 22, this is not $9 trillion. I don't know where I don't know where this number is coming from. In 2022, the fiscal year spending was $6 trillion, not 9. Well, I don't know where they're getting this number. I'm not gonna. I don't really care, but they have it by department. See, department of, and you can do it in landscape in one of these as well. So this is how much money the department actually spent, right? 2.4, even though billion. I don't know where this number comes from. Maybe they're not factoring in the offsetting receipts, which is stupid. But anyway, so this is by department. But then they also have it by budget function. And this is where they separate Medicare and health. I don't know why, but they separate them. And then they have Social Security, which is a department, but the number for Social Security department, Social Security function versus Social Security department, those numbers are going to be different. They're going to be different. And this is where they have net interest. Net interest, or interest in general, is part of the Treasury Department. Okay, so if we go back to agency, there is a line item here for Treasury somewhere, but they really go too far with these departments. But somewhere in here, there is the Department of Treasury. Maybe it's better to do this and find the Department of the Treasury. Veteran Affairs, Homeland, Urban Development, Justice, Interior. Okay, hold on. I think my phone's ringing. I'll get it in a minute. Jesus Christ. Well, clearly it's somewhere in the back. Or maybe I opened it and I didn't see it. Oh, it's right there, Department of Treasury, because I'm retarded. But this one, it's so high because it includes that interest. So you can do it by agency, or you can do it by social structure. And that's the, like, I would love to use this website, but their numbers are just wrong. They're just wrong. The total spending of the federal government was not 9 trillion. It was 6 trillion. It's what it's been for, the last few years. They're spending $6 and change trillion. But in each one of these departments, there is a line item for offsetting receipts. Now, if that website is not factoring in the offsetting receipts, then yeah, it can be 9 trillion. But each of these departments does make internal money. But then, if you're not going to add this positive income from each department into their numbers of how much money the government spends, then you have to enter it into how much money the government makes. So then this number would go up by 3 trillion. So maybe they're doing it that way, but it's so silly to do it that way. So if I go back to, to homepage, right? But they don't have the thing of how much the government makes. Explore the spending landscape, right? How do I explore the earning landscape? It is just kind of silly. Yeah, it's usaspending.com. There should be earning.com. So it's just it's incorrect, right? So it's like if you it's kind of like you're saying, oh, I made $1 million last year, but how much did you spend, right? Like if your business cost you $950,000 to maintain, like a grocery store, for example, like a grocery store can make $1 million in sales, but you have to buy every single item that you sell. So this is why the government taxes you on revenue, not on they tax you on profit, not on revenue, right? So this is kind of like the revenue side of it, but each department does make money. Okay, so on that note, what I'm going to be doing is, and by the way, I hate this term, income security. I don't know what it means. I had to spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. So again, going back to this article, it's a good article, by the way. It tries to explain this. So this is by social structure, so, but they combine health insurance. So that's what I want to do. I want to use this structure, and they use the term economic security programs. They don't use the term income security. What the hell is income security? It's just a weird way to say it. Look, we all understand what Social Security payments are. A lot of people that are retired getting paid Social Security back. Health is Medicaid. Again, Medicaid is to people that can't afford health care. Medicare is people that are, in retirement and stuff, and the government pays for their health care. National defense makes sense. I would add veteran benefits into national defense, more like national offense, but semantics. Education makes sense. Transportation makes sense. I would add a few more departments. Other is a little too big. We can go a little bit more granular. I would combine health and Medicare as single health. So this would be almost like a department line. I want to get these categories as close to departments as possible. But I do want to take out net interest. And net interest would take away from the Department of Treasury. And if you take away interest or net interest from the Department of Treasury, the Department of Treasury doesn't cost all that much money. We can go to the spreadsheet and we can see the breakdown of the Department of the Treasury. So the Department of the Treasury total is 1.5 trillion. But remember, a big chunk of that, that this year it's still 1.1, but a big chunk of that is this. By the way, there was also other crazy discrepancies, some weird stuff, like the child tax credit. For some reason, in 2020, the child tax credit, the government only paid $27 billion. But in 2022, the government paid $131 billion in child tax credit. Like, how many kids did people have during the COVID year? So this is weird. To me, this is weird. I'm not going to go digging into this number, but it is weird why the child tax credit, maybe the Biden administration started paying, 3 times more in child tax credit since Trump. That could be it. Maybe they increased the kickback on taxes if you have kids. That could be it, but I don't know how to explain this. But it's just, again, curious anomalies in the data that require further going into. So the Department of Treasury, when you take out the $700 billion, by the way, this thing is gonna be super interesting. So the coronavirus relief fund is now half as much. So the bottom line number has not changed in 3 years, but inside that number, things are very, very different. So just check this out. Bear with me here for a second. The amount of interest that the government makes has not changed. It's about the same. The bottom line of the Treasury Department is about the same. The Corona Relief Fund has significantly dropped. It dropped by $150 billion. But look how much interest on public debt has gone up. And look how much child tax credit has gone up. Now, this other has dropped a lot. This is from the taxes, and there were some huge tax rebates. Remember, $600 to every citizen. That's 300 million people, plus a bunch of illegal aliens, so maybe 400 million people got a check for 600. That was back from Trump. Then Biden paid everyone more money, right? So that's where these large numbers come from. Now this is back down, which is good, but this one is crushing it. And next year, this will probably be $1 billion. Sorry, $1 trillion on its own. So it'll be $1 trillion on its own. Okay. So while these numbers have gone down significantly, the child tax credit they can take away. So they can drop that down. But this expense is going to get bigger. So when you back out this 717 from this, but you do have to, net it out. But it doesn't matter, right? Like it's already netted out. When you back out the 717, the Treasury Department, that was not an expensive department. It's mostly tax rebates and other rebates, right? And then the cost to run the Treasury. So it's probably in here in the other section. Like the Treasury doesn't cost that much money to run. So again, really interesting stuff in the numbers. So I am going to be redoing this chart. I'm going to do it by program like this. But I am going to name it economic security programs, not income security. The income, that was the weird part. I had to figure out what income security is. Like they do describe it here. They describe it as income security. Right there. Economic security programs. This category includes all programs in the income security function, except, these three. So I just hate the term income security. Income security is economic security programs. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to, there's probably a few differences there. So income security, 665 billion. How does that compare to? Yeah, 865 billion for income security and 665. Damn, so they took 200 billion out. So where did it go? I just hate that term income security. So these three programs federal employee retirement disability and general retirement disability insurance. So these two programs must cost 200 billion. Interesting. So where do they stick those programs in this graphic? Because this graphic has economic security programs. I like that title way better.
All right, guys, I gotta go. I gotta run. People are trying to reach me. So I'm not gonna. No, I'll save the pack for next time. I'll save the pack for next time. I'm happy with the card that I got. If I didn't get a good card, I would do it. Okay. What does this prove? No, it doesn't prove anything. It's just like I'm trying to make my own charts that are useful to me for how to look at the budget and because what I want to do is I want to start putting these charts and I want to put it every year. I'm trying to inform the public that this interest on debt is what's going to destroy the United States. This right here. Interest on debt is going to destroy the United States. And I want everyone to be aware of that. And this interest on debt is the main reason why there is likely to be a war between America, China, and Russia. Because the United States cannot get out of the implosion of the US economic system because of interest on debt. And even the government itself, at least one person at the government, is informed enough to put this chart together, but they are still wrong as to how quickly this chart will rise if the interest rate stays above 5%. As I stated in yesterday's video, if the interest rate remains above 5%, this chart will actually look like the following. The chart will look more like this. Okay? And it eventually goes vertical. And it's going to go vertical way sooner than the government's projecting. Way sooner. If the interest rate stays above 5%. And this is what I've tried to explain over the last two videos. And in order for me to make proper charts to show you this, I needed to know how the US government is calculating net interest instead of interest on debt. Because I don't want to trust, I don't want to use statistics I don't understand. So now, after 2 days of work and no sleep or food, I finally understand where these categories and numbers come from. I also didn't realize this was by social category and not by department, because the department numbers are different. But I want to match these up as close to the departments as possible. And I hate this income security term. Absolutely hate it. It doesn't, what does this tell you? Like, everyone looks at the budget. Oh, okay. But I'm like, what the hell is income security? All right, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I gotta try to clean up these tabs and save them all somewhere. And I will see you all on the next one. We'll glance at the chart one more time. And there it goes. There it goes. Bitcoin. Sorry, there goes the stock market to the upside. Let's go back to the daily chart. We have a nice bullish candle, even though the Fed is threatening to raise interest rates 50 basis points. And if they do, once again, remember, hockey stick coming in. Hockey stick coming in. All right, guys. Thank you all for watching. I already opened the pack. I opened the pack in the morning. I don't know. It's a lucky day. All right, fine. I'll open a pack. All right, we'll do one more pack. This is it, guys. My last box. No, I did buy another box, but I have zero intention to open the other box. If I can use all of these cards from this box to make a full set, I will not buy it. I will never open the other box. Well, eventually, maybe, or do something with it. All right, let's go. First card. Oh, I haven't gotten this card in a while. The monetary history card. It's been a while since I got that one. We have the Lightning Network card. I really like the art here. Lightning Network card. Next card is the economics card. Next card is, one of my favorite arts. This is the Bitcoin halving card. One of my favorite cards, the Samurai. Freedom card. Great card. Have a few of those. The Beast, every single pack. Let me see if I get the centralization card. Really cool card. This is the Satoshi Nakamoto card. The blockchain card, the basic one, not the fancy 1 of 500. Haven't gotten this one in a while. This is, again, one of my favorite arts, the currency card. And, I got it 2 packs in a row. Wow. Now I have 3, 3, and 4 of the red cards. 2 packs in a row. I got the blockchain 1 of 500 cards. Again, great card. I'm going to protect it. And now I got to go. Thank you all for watching. See you all on the next one.